Yeah, we back. Now, today's video is going to be a follow-up video to one I dropped yesterday entitled, Candace Owens dropped by her sponsors for not being a good puppet. Now, I got a comment on my video that I got to respond to. This guy came into my comment section and he said this, take a look up on the screen. Dude, you are way off. A conservative is someone that believes in God, pro-life, small government, low taxes, family first, small businesses, no gun control. That's most black people, not just Americans, but most Africans around the world. And I responded to him and I said this: white American conservatives and black African conservatives do not share the same culture or worldview. Different cultures around the world produce different variations of so-called conservatism. A white conservative male from Texas does not share a bond with a black man from Tanzania. Stop tap dancing. Our economic and political interests are completely different. Now, that's why I had to give that disclaimer in the video yesterday. Listen, if you're from that white conservatives section of YouTube, I said in that video in the beginning, the first 10 seconds, do not subscribe to my channel. Do not bring your liberal conservative culture wars to my channel. I'm not interested. That shit is child's play to me. That shit is beneath me. Oh my God, the liberals, the Democrats, the Republicans, the conservatives. Y'all just some clowns to me, for real. Just stuck in your little binary box. I had a bunch of folks come into my comment section, try to accuse me of being a liberal or a Democrat. Bro, keep that liberal conservative Republican Democrat culture wars on that side of YouTube. Do not bring that nonsense over to my section of YouTube. I'm just gonna block you from the channel. I'm not interested. That shit is stupid to me. Now, anyway, let's get into it, bro. I want to really attack what he said. He tried to make the assertion that black African conservative males have similar political interests as white American conservative males. Oh my God. You see, man, listen, man, I'm telling you, bro. That's the reason why I said, stay on that section of YouTube. Stay on that side of YouTube. I am not interested in bringing this level of discourse to my comment section, bro. Please, it's beneath me. But anyways, I might as well address it, right? Let's get into it. Now, first things first, what we got to understand is, in general, when people talk about conservatism, they are talking about a political philosophy that emphasizes the preservation of traditional institutions, values, and traditional customs. Now, whatever is being conserved or preserved is going to be different based on the cultural, historical, and national context of the people that you're talking about. The most common beliefs that you'll find among so-called conservatives, regardless of their cultural background, is going to be an emphasis on family, religion, education, community values, etc., etc. The second most common belief is the importance of preserving your cultural heritage, your national identity, and your historical traditions, your languages, your customs, your ceremonies, your national history, etc., etc. Now, in the Western context, conservatism advocates for minimal government intervention, low taxes, free enterprise, etc., etc. They also value the principle of law and order. They also believe in the importance of national sovereignty and economic independence, which is connected to a belief of having a strong military presence. These are political elements in so-called conservatism that you'll find around the world. But when you dive deep into specific cultures, you'll notice that there are differences in conservatism. For example, white American conservatism traces their roots back to the founding of America, the ideals of the so-called founding fathers, the Confederate South. Their culture influences their view of government. Black African conservatism, they may share some conservative values like the importance of family, tradition, education, whatever, but the historical context is completely different. When you look at the history of African nations, it's marked by military conflicts, invasion, intervention by Western nations. It's marked by struggles for independence. It's marked by colonialism. It's marked by Western multinational corporations trying to exert their influence. It's marked by political assassinations backed by Western nations. So when you look at the historical context of these two different groups, you can never say they share the same interests. In fact, you can say they are direct rivals if you want to be real about it, if you want to keep it as that. So that's why I felt I got to address this comment, man. This dude really tried to say that most Africans around the world share the same political interest and political orientation as white American conservatives. Like, man, listen, y'all be tap dancing so goddamn hard, you're gonna break your ankles trying to tap dance this hard. Y'all gotta relax, man. Y'all gotta relax. Anyways, man, like I said, the white American brand of conservatism can never be compared to the black African brand of conservatism because we do not share the same culture, history, or share the same economic interests. Western nations have been engaging in warfare against African nations going all the way back to the early 1500s to as recently as a few months ago, when the United States and France were both threatening to support a military intervention into the nation of Niger to reinstall the Western-backed puppet that was forcefully removed from power. So logically, how could we share the same interests when you take a look at history, we've been directly opposed to each other for centuries? I don't understand the logic. at all. But anyways, man, let's continue. Western nations, regardless if they're liberal or conservative, regardless if there is a Democrat or Republican in power, they have a parasitic relationship and a foreign policy against African nations. And any intelligent Black African conservative would have a desire to lessen the impact and influence of Western nations and advocate for economic sovereignty of their own people, which would have a detrimental effect on Western economies. So like I said, how can we share the same interests when our interests are directly opposed to each other? Explain the logic. Explain the logic. It doesn't compute in my mind. How can we share the same interests when our economic interests are completely different? For example, Western economic systems and their wealth accumulation, they involve a history of colonization, military invasion, political assassination, global trade dominance. A Black African man who wants to conserve his economic and political interests above the interests of Western economies and Western multinational corporations, he would be seen as a threat by all Western political factions, liberal or conservative. It doesn't matter whether a Democrat is in power or a Republican. Any Black African man who wants to conserve his economic and political interests will be seen as a threat by the Western power structure. It doesn't matter if Joe Biden is in office or Donald Trump is in office. They both share the same worldview when it comes to foreign policy against Black African nations, meaning they both have a desire to defend Western economic dominance across the world. And Western economic dominance across the world is against our political and economic interests. End of discussion. Point blank, period. End of discussion. Our economic and political interests are completely different. We have nothing in common. When you look at Western economic strategies, they involve maintaining global economic dominance, securing access to markets and resources worldwide, whether by political negotiation or by brute force. Western nations have historically benefited from access to African markets and African resources, often under terms that were favorable to them. But a Black African conservative man would be focused on achieving and maintaining his economic sovereignty. An intelligent Black African conservative male would aim to conserve and enhance his economic, militaristic, and political power by controlling his resources, advancing his local industries, and negotiating for trade agreements that are favorable to his people and detrimental to the Western economies. So how can we share the same interests when our interests are directly opposed? Explain the logic. You see, if African nations were under the leadership of an intelligent Black African conservative man with the interests of his people as his #1 priority, this would challenge the current global economic order because he would advocate for certain policies that would assert more control over African resources and African markets. And this would lead to a realignment of the global economic power, with African nations having greater leverage in international trade and international politics. And for Western conservatives and Western liberals alike, this would be seen as a threat to their economic interests and their global standing. And of course, they would respond in typical fashion with bloodshed, sabotage, political assassination, whatever it takes to protect their economic interests. You know how they do, man. You know how they do. So, like I said, once again, how can we share the same interests when our interests are directly opposed to each other? Explain the logic. Explain the logic. You can't. You can't because it doesn't make sense. Even in terms of military, right? For example, one of the biggest tenets of conservatism is having a strong defense, having a strong military to defend your people, right? But Western liberals and Western conservatives, they do not believe in African nations having a strong military presence, having access to the latest technology, having access to nuclear weapons. They don't believe in that. They don't believe in a well-armed Africa because a well-armed Africa would be detrimental to their economic interests. If Africa is armed to the teeth, how are these Western multinational corporations going to exert their influence on the continent? How are they going to justify their constant military intervention on the continent if Africa is armed to the teeth? Because an intelligent Black African man with a conservative view on African military power would advocate for a stronger stance against foreign military presence and Western intervention, as well as nationalizing certain resources and industries, which is directly opposed to Western economic interests, regardless if a liberal or conservative is in power. So in summary, man, one thing we got to understand, we can't really take our American, liberal conservative culture wars and try to project that onto the international stage. It doesn't work. It doesn't translate. Keep these culture wars inside the United States. Don't try to project that onto Black nations around the world. It's because it doesn't translate. It doesn't translate at all. It doesn't translate at all. Black men and white men on the international stage, we have nothing in common. We do not share the same interests. We have nothing in common. The white man's interest is directly opposed to the Black man's interest. So don't come around talking to me about how the white conservative man and the Black conservative man, we share interests, we share commonalities. Man, so the fuck what? Because we value education. If you're intelligent, you're going to value education. I mean, so what? Family values. So what? If you're a decent person, you're going to have family values. So the fuck what? Like, man, keep that culture war shit in the United States. Keep that liberal, Democrat, conservative, Republican bullshit in the United States, man. Don't come around talking to me about that dumb shit. Oh my God. Oh, most Africans around the world, we're all conservative. Man, shut the fuck up. Anyway, man, it's your boy Neferkari, that's Salim, back in the building. Yes, indeed. Cash App up on the screen, and I'm gone. Peace. Reincarnated, I'm back in original fashion. I left on a horse and came back in the ass, and I left with abundance and came back to famine. We used to be pyramids, now we be rapping. Look how the mighty have fallen. Used to be running, now we be walking. When you be cooning, that's when they applauded. Selling your soul, your sons and your daughter. Gotta come up in this shit, they stuck in the mix. Really, my heart it be breaking. That's why I'm stacking that paper and handle my business. Pass it down in generation. Talking about money and power and building a nation. That's a deadly combination. Never be watching the TV, they pushing agendas, falsifying information. Know they got malice intentions. Step in the room and I'm feeling the tension. Enemy watching me blocking my vision. Pay for the check cause I need my redemption. Building my kingdom, I need it protected. Ready for war like a young money Congo. Never decided the team is the motto. Up in the crib and I'm whipping up waffles. Up in the crib and I'm smoking gelato. I'm chilling, I'm taking my pain and make it ambition. I'm blessed by the gods, but I ain't religious. I came for the power, they came for the bitch. They making no hourly wage, I got business. This is an art and they could never be taught. Selling my soul, I can never be bought. Play with my money, I see you ain't caught. Run to the check and I do it for sport. Babylon falling, I go to the source. Packing my luggage and go overseas. Shorty be with me and she so elite. Shorty be chocolate, I'm calling her Hershey. Secret intelligence probably gon' murk me. Don't fuck with brands cause nigga I'm Haitian. Say the wrong shit and you're smacking their faces.